Hi and welcome to this video. Today we're going to talk about something called Paris syndrome and how it is portrayed in classic literature. I was recently thinking of Paris syndrome and that I wanted to make a video about it. So in this video I'm going to combine a bit of psychology with books, which are two topics that I love talking about. So let's get started. Imagine you're going on vacation to this dream destination that you've been wanting to go to for so long. You've read about it, you've seen it in the movies. It's called the City of Love, the City of Light. It's Paris. But when you finally get there, it's not the heaven that you were promised. Everything is not as magical as you imagined. There are tourists everywhere, there's trash on the ground, there's still homelessness, societal issues. It's not at all what you expected it to be. This can actually lead to psychological distress in some people, and that is what we call Paris syndrome. Paris syndrome is a term for psychological distress such as anxiety, depression, and even hallucinations that people can experience when Paris does not live up to their expectations. This term was introduced in the 1980s by a Japanese psychiatrist who found that mostly Japanese tourists experience this distress. Apparently, especially in Asian countries, Paris is hyped up to be this dream destination that you must visit. Also in Western media, Paris is seen as this romanticized city, the city of love, but when you get there you can be really disappointed by the reality. When I was thinking of books that I read that take place in Paris, I actually noticed that a lot of them talk about this topic, even though these books were published almost a century before this term was come up with. So it's really interesting to me that these books already talk about something that is still relevant today. I mean, with social media, expectations versus reality is now more relevant than ever, and with the use of AI, things are not always what they seem to be. So I really wanted to talk to you about this topic today. The first book that I wanted to talk about today is The Phantom of the Opera by Gaston Leroux. This is a classic book. It is also a fantastic musical. So if you haven't read it yet or seen it, I would highly recommend that you do so. The story is about this ghost, this phantom, who lives in the Paris Opera building. He's an outcast, he's very much feared by people, but he becomes a music teacher to one of the ballet girls, and we get to learn more about him. The Phantom is a very troubled person, and the main thing that he's insecure about is his appearance. So he hides his face behind a mask, and he hides himself within the building. One of the interesting things about the Phantom of the Opera is that the Phantom is supposedly a very ugly person, but he lives in such a beautiful building. I don't know if you've ever seen the Paris Opera building, but it's really, really gorgeous. And this kind of reflects the duality of the beautiful exterior and the ugly reality within, which is also exactly what happens with Paris syndrome, where Paris can look very perfect from the outside, but once you get there, it might be very different in reality. This story is very much about someone who is very lonely and sad, which is so different from what the opera house is supposed to represent. People come to the opera house to hear music, see art, come together and enjoy themselves. And you don't expect the person living within to be so miserable. I also think one of the interesting things about the Phantom of the Opera is that the Phantom kind of lives in the foundation of the opera house. I don't know if I'm taking it too far here, but it kind of symbolizes for me how he is the foundation of the building, and that the opera house may be built upon a lot more sadness than it looks like from the outside. But let me know what you think about this. Perhaps he is also disappointed by Paris and what the opera house are going to give him. I mean, music is a way for him to express himself, but it does not fix his problems. All the books I'm discussing today show how the buildings of Paris are very much romanticized, but they also show a harsh reality through the characters. It fits Paris syndrome so well because the struggles and the issues are actually hidden behind the closed doors of the buildings. So you would actually have to enter the building, read the story, or visit Paris yourself for you to see the struggles and the reality. This next book has a very similar story to The Phantom of the Opera, and it is The Hunchback of the Notre. Again, such a classic book, would highly recommend it. From the outside you see this beautiful building, the Notre, but within lives someone who is very isolated and disconnected from society because of his appearance. Quasimodo is of course known for his hunchback, and he really wants to hide that from the world out of fear of not being accepted. This of course is a very similar story to The Phantom of the Opera. Now this book also talks about societal issues in Paris, which you might not read about or hear about, and can lead even more to disconnect from reality when you finally visit. The Notre Dame is also a cathedral, so it's a sacred building, but even though it is, it houses someone who is very troubled, which again shows this duality of the expectations and the reality within. I actually think it's also quite nice to discuss what these books add to the dissonance felt by tourists, because these books do promote a kind of fantasy about a specific building in Paris. I mean, when you hear the Notre Dame, you immediately think of the Hunchback of the Notre Dame, and it's called the Phantom of the Opera. And while these books do show a kind of darker side of Paris, they also promote this kind of fantasy surrounding these buildings, because when you get to Paris, you will still see these beautiful buildings, but there will not be living a phantom within. Now, there is another book that talks about the difference between expectations versus reality in Paris, but also has a character who is disappointed by Paris. I'm talking about The Lady's Paradise by Emile Zola, which talks about the uprise of the department store and capitalism in Paris, which is just really interesting to me. It shows us the perspective of someone who's trying to promote the department store as this shopping heaven, just for their own gain and benefit. And we see the perspective of Denise, who travels to Paris to get a better life. She goes to work in the department store, and there she realizes that it is not at all what she expected it to be. Paris is of course known for its shopping, and while I was reading the book, I thought of the Galerie Lafayette in Paris, which is this gorgeous building full of stores. And this has to be exactly what the book is talking about. The department store tries to be as attractive and seductive as possible to get people to spend their money. Also, the owner can gain more money. The workers get treated very badly, and the smaller stores actually have to close down because they cannot compete with the prices of the department store. And this is the perfect example of something that seems really beautiful from the outside, but actually is really ugly within. And I feel like capitalism is still very relevant, which makes this book a great book to read right now. What's especially interesting to me is how these books were published already so long before tourism became a big thing. I mean, The Hunchback of the Notre Dame was published in 1831. So apparently these authors already saw this kind of duality in Paris and felt the need to write about it. It's interesting to see so many books with similar themes or messages. So this topic must have been important to them. And it's still important to people right now, because especially The Phantom and The Hunchback have become massive successes. They've both been adapted multiple times. So people really resonate with this kind of message. Movies and series romanticize Paris still so much, and tourism has just been growing a lot. So I feel like this topic is now more important than ever. So that's all I have for today. I want to thank you so much for watching. Let me know in the comments what you think about this topic, and I'll see you in the next video.